and fight our battles. It's key right there. The king may go out and fight our battles before us. See, we have to understand what's led to this point. So Samuel is the prophet at this point, but Samuel is getting old, and his sons Joel and Abijah, they're not walking in his ways, but they turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. So we get the indication that this is the reason for wanting a king, and really that's part of it. But another reason is this, and this is what Samuel said. And when you saw that Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, came against you, you asked for a king. So it was a fear of man. It was fear of the Ammonites coming in. So at this point, we're in a transition point. They've never had a king. They had a king. It was God. God's always been the king at this point. But there's been a transition. The transitioning of kings, and it's going from God being rejected as king to man wanting man to be king. So pretty much it's a shift in trust. Trust is being shifted from God and being put into man. God, you delivered us out of Egypt. You delivered us through the wilderness. You delivered us, but we don't want deliverance your way no more. We want it man's way. There's a shift happening that we have to be able to see in 1 Samuel. And this is where we find ourselves. And this is where Saul is introduced to us. Saul's chosen. He's the one. He's going to save Saul. He's going to go fight our battles, Brad. Right. He ain't got to do nothing. I mean, can you imagine the pressure that's put on this man instantaneously? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? He's supposed to fill the role of God. He's going to deliver us like God did. He's almost in a way set up to fail, from my perspective. So just for the record, he is the first to fill this role. He's the first king for Israel as far as a man to fill this role. He has no experience and to step into this role. But also, I said this, but also the pressure and the expectancy that he's facing is almost unbearable. Also, we have to acknowledge that there are areas in his life where he was willing to fight, but there are also areas that he wasn't willing to fight. And it's those areas that lead us in what we're going to talk about today. It's the battles that we don't fight, the effect that it has on the next generation. The next generation, we'll just leave it at that. When we don't step up to the enemy, we leave things still remaining, still standing for the next generation to face. Because we didn't properly engage and deal with them. We didn't man up, is what I said. So that's Saul. That's how Saul comes on the scene. And one interesting thing about Saul that I'm just going to throw in there is when he was rejected, and this can be hard to understand from a flesh and blood point of view. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Obviously, if you guys have read the story, Saul did that. What I think is, it's hard for us to grasp because the women and children and the infants and the ox. But what God is saying, the enemy is the enemy. Don't play around with it. When I tell you to cut him off, you cut him off. It's pretty straight up. Don't go fooling around with the enemy. I don't care if it's a woman, if it's an infant, if it's a baby, if it's an ox, if it's a sheep, you call it whatever you want to call it. The enemy is the enemy. A key theme that I felt like the Lord gave me for Saul is the giant you don't defeat will be the Goliath the next generation will have to face. This leads us into our second character that I want to talk about, and that's David. 1 Samuel 16, 13 and 14. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. And Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. This is an interesting introduction, while an interesting exit for the old king. But so David is anointed to be king while under a rejected king, but still has the ability to recognize who the real king is, the King of Kings. It's a key factor. David has the advantage of serving the king, the rejected king. He's serving the king. He's getting experience while being prepared to serve as king. It's something that Saul didn't really have the advantage of, right? Saul didn't have no one to look to. He was the first one to step into the position. David actually has an advantage on Saul because he gets the experience of serving under a king. It might not be good experience, but it's still experience.
Right.
It's a key difference.
Right.
You have to see that. We usually have a hard time with this period of time, but knowing that the preparation will be the thing that builds trust, that builds faith, that will sustain us when we step into our office. It really comes out of a deeper relationship, which is really the foundation which dictates what happens when the storm comes. Why was David able to face Goliath? Anybody?
God.
That's correct.
Right.
He had faith, he had strength. Yeah. He had a past record with God. The Lord who rescued me from the claw of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine.
Amen.
David's past experience built a relationship where he was able to trust God. Because he was able to defeat the lions and bears in private, he was able to defeat the Goliath in public.
Right.
You have to be able to defeat things in private. The things that you don't defeat in private, if you don't defeat, there will be the same things that come to haunt you. But because he was able to take care of what he had to take care of in private, it elevated him to step up out in public and deal with other people's things. Goliath wasn't his issue. Goliath was whose issue? It was Saul's issue, the king's issue, to go out and fight our battles. Key, we have to see that. It's not his battle to fight, because Saul sat back passively, you know what I'm saying, and just push it off to the side. David would have to step in. Got a little ahead of myself, but it's all good.
It's all good.
It's good, yeah. Praise him. He's good.
Amen.
God is
All
good.
the time.
All the time.
Yeah. It's, so that's David. We got Saul, we got David, and we're going to talk a little bit about Goliath. Goliath was always an enemy, just for the record. You know what I'm saying? So 1 Samuel 17, 10 and 11. And the Philistines said, I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man. Give me a man. Okay, you got that right. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. I have to agree with Goliath on this one. A man stands up to his enemy and fights. It's just what a man does. I want to point out that this is what Israel chose Saul to do, right? Saul was chosen to stand up to Goliath, which we all know he didn't. How is it possible that the king of Israel is dismayed and greatly afraid? We have to be careful who we allow to influence, to who to have influence in our life. We have to be careful who we put our trust in, because that same thing can be the very thing that leaves us in bondage. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly. Because Saul was terrified and deeply shaken, the people were terrified and deeply shaken.
Yep.
Who you're looking up to, who you're putting your trust in, who you're allowing to influence you. A key thing for Goliath is this: be careful who and what you're fighting, because you might just be fighting God. Right? Because Goliath is the enemy, obviously, right? Okay. So we got the characters. We got Saul, we got David, and we got Goliath. Now we're going to transition into David and Goliath. Which is interesting, because it's supposed to be Saul and Goliath. But unfortunately, the king is not able to handle the lions and the bears in private, so he can't handle the Goliath in public. So it can only last so long. The public, the show. Eventually, that stuff in private is going to come and haunt you. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you if you don't deal with it. And we see that's really the story of Saul and the end and his demise. So this is part of the effect that happens when we don't stand up to the enemy. The next generation will have to fight battles they were never supposed to fight. The only reason there's a David and Goliath is because Saul didn't want to deal with his issues. And this is, I think we've all seen this. I think we've all even experienced this to some extent. Self-medicating. A lot of men, they'll drink consistently every day after work, all day, all weekend, every family event, and the drinking and the drinking and the drinking. And I think the root of why the drinking is because they were never really to stand up to the real issue. They were never really to handle it. They weren't willing to deal with it. So they find something to really try to suppress it, to really take their mind off it, to try to temporarily solve the issue, which it really doesn't, but it feels that way. It numbs it, right? Yeah. Just because you defeat the Goliath that was passed on to you doesn't mean that the one who passed it on is delivered by your victory. Actually, when he sees you walking in freedom in areas where he is held captive, he begins to get jealous. And we see that in Saul, right?
Right.
He's not able to step up to Goliath. David steps up, handles his business, knocks him down, right? Boom. And what happens to Saul? He turns jealous on him. We experience this too. Why would you be jealous of me? I'm walking in freedom. We experience this in our families, in our friends. They see you living free, they get jealous because they're still trapped in bondage. When reality, it's an open door for you to be free too, but you don't want to be free. They choose to stay where they are. So it's a bitter thing. It really sucks, especially when you experience it on the family level. And it's obvious. It's easy to see the Goliaths in other people's lives. Let's not pump ourselves up too much, right? But at the same time, when dealing with family and you're able to tackle some things you really want to support, and when they're not there because they're held in bondage, it really sucks. And because Saul was never able to recognize the real issue, it creates an enemy who is never supposed to be the enemy. So we have to understand the source in which everything is coming from. The source is jealousy. It's steal, kill, and destroy. Steal, kill, and destroy. The source of that. Where's the source? It's the enemy. He wasn't able to engage that this was the enemy fueling this, right? And that's really one of the indicators that was his downfall as well. He wasn't able to distinguish that this is the enemy's tactic to keep him in bondage, that jealousy. We have to see that from David's perspective, Goliath was never an issue, but instead was the opening of the door that exposed the real issue. So fighting Goliath wasn't an issue. I reading the scriptures, I never got that impression that he was ever an issue. I don't know if you guys did, but Goliath was never an issue for David. David really represents us. He represents the believer. He represents how we can do all things through Christ. Because he was rejected too, man. I know we've all experienced this, right? He was overlooked. He has a past just like us. He really represents us in this story. And God did a great job in breathing this together. But there is an issue that I do believe that we wrestle with when it comes to Goliath, and it's the aftermath of him falling, right? This imagery, you know what I'm saying? You see me? The bigger they are, the harder they fall, man. I mean, there's this imagery that comes on us when we defeat Goliath, you know what I'm saying? This persona that we feel we have to maintain, because I'm a man now, you know what I'm saying? I defeated Goliath. You ain't heard about me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know me? Man, I knock him down. Right? There's this image we try to portray, which is false. See, check this out. Goliath will get your attention. I can tell you how it was instantly delivered from drugs and alcohol. Like that. That'll get your attention. That'll get you here. But the problem with that is that's where it usually stops for us men. Facebook is like this. Come on, bro. Mountaintop to mountaintop. That's all they want to show. So when we talk about Goliath, it's the same thing. It's just mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop, but it's not shown the valley low in between. The valley low, it's misleading.
Yeah.
It creates a misconception of what a man of God looks like.
Come on, bro. Come on.
You know what I'm saying?
It
It is the truth. But it's hard. It's hard because I'm supposed to be a man. You know what I'm saying? Come on. I'm supposed to be a man. My wife, man, I gotta be a man, man. I gotta defeat giants. You know, I can't tell her I'm wrestling with Saul and struggling with Saul. Man. What would she think of me?
Right.
I'm supposed to be a man. that we struggle with.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on, John.
So this is the issue. Eyes to see the battle is very important. You have to understand we're in a battle, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. But being able to see how the battle transitions from Goliath to Saul. There's a transition in battle, and we have to see it. We can't fight Saul with Goliath's sword. Can you imagine if we did? I mean, you know what I'm saying? If I'm trying to knock down Saul, Saul was never meant to fall that way. There's a transition. Paul said, "For we don't wrestle against flesh and blood." We have to understand that that's a transition into Saul. It's not a flesh and blood fight no more. But can you imagine if I think we all have done this though. I think so, right? I think we've all tried to fight Saul with Goliath's sword. And the effect that it has on us men is this. Man, you don't fall just like Goliath. I mean, Goliath not, man, maybe I ain't been hitting the weights as much as I should be. You know what I'm saying? Man, I start feeling weak, man. I start doubting because he's not falling like Goliath. It's a wrestling match. It's going longer. I'm getting exhausted. I'm doubting. Man, that spirit of rejection that's on Saul, man, I'm starting to feel it now. Because I wasn't able to what? I wasn't able to see that the battle, the way in which I engage in the battle has transitioned. Revelation to see the battle is great, don't get me wrong, but it can't stop there. We have to see that there's a transition, and it's not flesh and blood no more. We can't fight Saul how we defeated Goliath. It doesn't work like that. He will not fall that way. You only wear yourself out. And this is my belief. I believe this is where most of the men give up. They throw in the towel because Saul's not falling like Goliath. It messes with our imagery. It messes with our pride, our ego. This whatever you want to call it. This macho man that we try to pursue. You know what I'm saying? We try to put together. So not just having ears to hear, but not just having eyes to see. But having ears to hear how he's leading us into victory is key. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition to David and Saul now. So 1 Samuel 16:23. And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took, I'm going to say heart, but it says lie or leer, however you pronounce it. I just prefer saying heart because it's easy for me to say. David took the harp and played it with his hand. And Saul was refreshed and was well. And the harmful spirit departed from him. What's crazy and what's interesting is David was used, but Saul was able to experience the freedom for a moment. People that come to church, we've seen this plenty of times. People that come in hard situations, and man, we pray for them. They get touched, they get impacted, they feel the presence of God, but then they leave right back to bondage. They're not really. They come and they feel it, but they leave, and they're not really able to give it up. They don't want to give it up. The thing we have to see about suffering is that it's not meant to harm. Rather, it puts us in a position to cry out to God for deliverance. There has to be a transition back to putting God as King of Kings. We have to transition back for complete deliverance, for real deliverance, actually. We can't put our trust in a man no longer. And I'm not saying discredit. I believe in honor and respect, and don't get me wrong. I love men I love how God has put men in my life to fill areas that other men didn't fill. Don't get me wrong, but it's ultimately God using these men. God is the King of Kings, and we have to get that right. We have to transition them back to His throne. Amen.
Right. That's right.
See, obedience is sacrifice. Saul wasn't willing to be obedient because it was too much of a sacrifice. There's a way that seems right to a man, but in the end leads to death. It's hard to transition from old to new. The Old Testament, we see Solomon filthy rich with gold beyond measure. The New Testament, we see the opposite. We see people giving up houses, people turning from everything they knew to follow Christ. They were willing to give up everything. We have to count the cost as men of God. Saul wasn't really willing to give up everything. He wasn't willing to give up the old king, the old ways of life. David is more similar to us. Because he came out of rejection. He came out of overlooking. There was really nothing to go back to. I mean, for us, I think we all can say there's really nothing back in the past. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're going to go back to an area where the old king where it dictated what colors we wear, which way I wear my hat. You know what I'm saying? The way I dress, right? The way I look at women, right? There's nothing really back there, right? It's just bond. I'm not going to go back to jail just to go.
Right.
And I'm not talking about something, I'm talking about just mentally.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right.
There's nothing back to rejection.
Right.
So.
Come on.
David didn't have nothing to go back to.
Right.
I don't got nothing to go back to. There's nothing back here for me.
Right.
He was willing. That's why it's so easy for David to give it up. He found his life in Christ.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life. The gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life. And those who find it are few. I'm not going to say it's not hard. It is hard. And I think we all can admit that. But it leads to life. He's the only way to life. If breakthrough consists of him breaking me to bring me through it, it doesn't stop at breaking. It has to be a through it. Right? Breakthrough. He breaks me. He breaks me. He makes me aware of my brokenness to bring me through it. That's the real root of breakthrough. So he's not breaking you just to leave you broken. He's breaking you to bring you through it. Check this. This is weird, but check this out. So Wednesday, I usually don't come to encounters because I get off late. But so I choose. I'm fine, man. I work 10-hour day, smooth, man. I'm about to go get my praise on. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work out that way. In a sense, I'm driving down Mission, and I hit Haywood. I'm instantly sick. I'm not playing. I'm still feeling the effect right now. My stomach is it's just hurting. I got a headache, and I'm instantly feeling sick. And it didn't come on me until I started going to church. Warfare, spiritual warfare, right? We would assume, right? What's crazy is I have 2 days of sick time on the book. I got to use them, right? Isn't that kind of weird? Thursday and Friday, sick time. Okay, you might not, but I just think how it all works together so good. I would think that it's an attack, but on the contrary, I think, man, maybe now that I look at it, like, man, maybe he's just giving me 2 days of rest before I speak. But then I come in here today and I'm trying to prepare. I'm like, the headache's gone, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I still have the diarrhea. But I believe the diarrhea is for this reason. Check this out. There's sickness in my stomach, right? There's something, right? At times it just comes out, right? It just comes out. And it feels nasty, right? And it's disgusting. And man, after I'm done, I wash up and I still feel like I smell the stench, right? That sickness in me. But I believe what he's saying is there's sickness in us and he's wanting to just get it out of us. Break through.
Yeah.
That sickness has to go. It can't keep us in bondage no more. I believe this is not a coincidence. That not random that I got this. I really believe that he uses our bodies to speak. Like it has to go in Jesus' name. We can't hold on to it.
Right.
So the road less traveled is where we find ourselves. People aren't defeated because they want to be defeated. They're defeated because they don't know how to fight. Not being able to see that there's been a transition in the way that we fight. There's a transition from Goliath to Saul. As David worshipped, Saul was able to experience freedom. When we choose to engage in worship, others are able to feel the presence of God. What if worship was a way that we fight?
Right.
I mean, honestly, this is not just something I read now. Why? Because I've experienced it. David, I think of Will. When Will worships, I experience the freedom of God. I can't explain it. I don't have to explain it. I say the scriptures is true, not just for reading it, but I say it in reality. Okay. We have to, and for me this is hard because you know I'm not trying to, dance and worship. We gotta be cool and bless you, Lord. Thank you. we don't want to do too much, you know what I'm saying? We got this ego we got to keep. But when you choose to engage in worship, others are able to feel the presence of God. You have to be aware of that.
Right.
And that's a way to fight. We have to see that transition. We have to see that as a way to engage. Also, David was able to notice the threat on his life. He separated himself from Saul. Okay. Goliath falls. And in defeating Goliath, what that does is it exposes things that were once okay in our past that are no longer okay. We have to be able to recognize that there are things now as we step into this walk with God that are no longer okay. And if we don't separate if we don't build, our boundaries have to fall and his boundaries have to go up. 106 KMEL, 94.9. Look, if David's worship was able to release the enemy, right, the spirit, then we have to, on the contrary of that, we have to understand that there's music that attracts it.
Right.
You have to. We can't just be listening to any kind of music.
Right.
Amen.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it just doesn't work like that. You have to be able to separate yourself from certain things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Come on, Jeff.
Preach it.
Okay. And even this men's breakfast, this was strategically put together. What did David do after he separated himself from Saul? He surrounded himself with 400 to 600 men. This season, this time in your life, you have to be able to recognize that these are the men who've been put in your life to fight.
That's right.
How are we going to know how to fight for you if all you're doing is walking around acting like you're buff and tough? You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
Amen.
It's time to open up. It's time.
Right.
We will not know how to properly fight with you if you don't let us know how to fight. Come on, put that clip on. Is that okay? There's a clip that I think is crucial that just shows it. And it'll only take a second, but I think it really shows this of being able to fight together. You can take a little break while they send it up. I'm not saying go watch this movie. Don't watch the movie. Just the clip will speak for itself. I'm not promoting this movie. I don't advise to watch it. Please don't take it that way. Please don't even go watch it. But the clip it really speaks to this area. Some of you guys might watch it. I ain't gonna.
What's the movie, Jeff?
Coach Carter.
Oh, that's pretty decent movie.
Easy, but
You must pay a sacrifice of 50 million before you can go. That's everybody. That's a lot of people. Okay, Mr. Cruz. Before you can play on this team, you owe me 2,500 push-ups and 1,000 suicides. Oh, and they must be completed by Friday. Today's flavor, offense. I have a sister. Her name is Linda. Linda is smart. She's political. Well, actually, she's radical. Linda's got a big afro. Linda is our pick and roll offense. Before we get into that, let's warm up. Give me a layup line. Let's go, pal. I got it right here. Open. Give up, Mr. Cruz. Go home. You know your task is impossible before Friday, right? Mr. Cruz, I'm impressed with what you've done, but you came up short. You owe me 80 suicides and 500 push-ups. Please leave my gym.
I'll do push-ups for him.
That's it.
It's love.
You said we're a team. One person struggles, we all struggle.
Amen.
One player triumphs, we all triumph, right? I'll do some. I'll run suicides too.
Fine. Keep count. Call me when they're done. Oh, man.
We're all battling something.
Right.
Defeating Goliath is easy. Being able to separate yourself from Saul is hard. Being able to recognize the things that are contrary to what as Christians say we believe. Being able to break agreement with the things that we've done for years, for some even decades, is hard. Going against what the world says in a culture where we have mixed the American dream with his dream, we have to have the ability to separate ourselves. We have to have the ability to be honest. And the key thing is that he started out, he fought by himself. He chose to fight, but then everyone came along and fought with him. And that's key. We're not just going to start fighting if you're not going to fight first. You lead the way and you start handling your business. Then, that's the time for us to come along beside and to fight, engage in this battle with you. You have to deal with your stuff. Saul didn't deal with it.